Rickoo. Rickoo is what I called him. Rick is how he was known to many of you. He was younger to me by a little more than 4 years. He was fun, zany, loving, and generous. And like those of you with younger siblings will know, he could also be exasperating. But that is in the DNA of younger siblings, how to torment older siblings. As children, we would fight for a particular window seat in the car, or who got to take the first serving of the coveted homemade yogurt. As adults, we would argue about which restaurant we could meet at for our nightly dinner out, or monthly night dinner out, just the two of us, for the quality time without our spouses. I will miss these exasperating sibling discussions terribly. He would call me up from time to time and say, "I'm swinging by for tea," or if it was after 6 p.m., "I'm stopping by for a glass of wine." And then, after he'd arrived and settled down with the tea or wine, he would say, "Well, what goodies do you have to eat?" Rick, as you know, was a foodie. He loved to eat and he loved to cook. And he loved to share his concocted dishes with others. He would cook me lamb and fish, things I loved and dishes that he loved to experiment with. He was a musician as well. He could amuse himself for hours on the guitar and the piano. When he was young, he had a teacher who came home and taught him how to play simple children's songs on the guitar. You know, Old MacDonald Had a Farm, or She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain, songs of that kind. And from those basic tunes, he taught himself complex music, especially the music of those guitarists of the 1960s and 1970s he respected enormously. George Harrison and Eric Clapton were two of his favorites. We shared a love for Bob Dylan, though he would confess to me that he often couldn't understand what Dylan was singing in his nasal and twangy voice. Our other loves in common were Jean-Luc Picard, the captain of Star Trek Next Generation, and Chief Inspector Clouseau of the Pink Panther series. Sometimes the phone would ring and I would pick it up, and there would be a voice at the other end saying, "This is Chief Inspector Clouseau. There is a monkey in your room." And that was a signal that we had to both abandon our own voices and assume those of Clouseau and the Chief Inspector Dreyfus, whom Clouseau drove to distraction because of his bumbling ineptness. It was totally silly, we both knew it, but it helped us relieve all kinds of stress, particularly the hassle of our insane commute to and from work. For several years, our commutes were very similar, stuck in gridlock in our separate cars, probably less than a mile away from each other. We would do the Clouseau-Dreyfus routine to pass the time, or rant and rave at this crazy city that we both loved, but couldn't figure out why anyone had designed its street layout so poorly, or why there would be blocks and blocks of a main road where the names of the side streets would be indicated, but you couldn't say which main street you were on. He would call me when he was driving through some area of Boston or its surrounding towns that he'd never been in before, and he would ask me to navigate him on the phone. He would say, "I don't need a GPS when I have you." Perhaps our deepest connection was over his first dog, Boris. We went together to pick up the puppy, and we laughed about Boris's teething period when he would rip up the mail and scatter the bills all over the room. As Boris grew up, he became more and more like Rickoo, ready to eat anything. Affectionate, generous, and delighted when I would visit. There was a period when I hadn't visited in a while because I was traveling for work, and Rickoo had trained Boris to bark into the phone when he said my name. The phone rang, I picked it up, and I heard a voice at the other end of the line whispering, "Where's that Rajni?" And then Boris's deep, loud barks followed. Rickoo came on the line, and in a mock stern voice, he chided me. Boris is saying, "Where are you? What happened to all the promises you made to come and visit?" During these past weeks, I saw Rickoo in the hospital on my way back from work. And about 10 days ago, he was waiting for me to go down to the cafeteria. He was so fed up with the food that they were bringing him up to his room that he'd refused to open the dishes on the tray that day. We went down to the cafeteria. Rickoo ate a turkey sandwich. I drank some tea. A few days after that, when I was texting him, we exchanged messages about, not surprisingly, food. I was worried about his appetite, and I wrote to him, "Have you eaten anything?" He texted me back, "About to have breakfast." "Eat well," I said. "Will do," he wrote back. Dear Rickoo, my dearest brother, I hope that wherever you are, there is a gourmet chef to cater to your love of food and to delight you always. Your dearest sister, Raj.
Uh, 22 years ago, Rick came into my life as an angel. I thought he's going to spend the rest of my life with me, but I never thought he's going to go away so soon. He spread happiness to friends, relatives, everyone, but he lived with pain every day of his life because of his health. There's a funny story about how we met first time. 92, he came to my office in India as a consultant. He used to come every day and talking to my boss about projects and things like that. One day I told him, "Rick, you have a sexy voice." So he was surprised coming from an Indian woman. Nobody will say in India like that. I was one step ahead. So he said, "Thank you." So he said, "What about dinner this evening?" I said, "Sure." They start our journey, beautiful journey. We got engaged 6 months after we got married, came to US, and we traveled around the world. He spoiled me with unbelievable cooking. I hardly cooked. He cooked almost every day. When I came to US, I used to eat only Indian food and Chinese food. He converted me to all the food he can possible. "You don't have a choice, you should eat." I said, "Okay, let me taste first." So I got used to it, and I can eat anything now. So every day he used to play piano. I think that was his therapy for all his pain. Though he was been a transplant patient, kidney failure patient for 17 years, he never showed his pain to me. Unless sometime he called me, "Sheila, can you rub the back for me?" And he used to be in pain almost every single day, but he never showed to anyone. That's Rickoo. We went to so many places. He took me everywhere, all over the world. Every day of my life was beautiful. That's what Rick wanted to be. Though he was in pain, he never told me. He was a great husband. He was a wonderful dad to Boomer and Boris, and great brother, and great son. And he'll always tell me, Sheila, you should never cry if I go before you. You should cherish the life I had with you. That will make me happy. So we're going to cherish his life, and by not crying, we'll try not to cry, but and we're going to cherish his life and move on with our life. And Mom, this is for you. Though Rickoo is gone, all these days I was your daughter-in-law. Now I'm your daughter. So when you come to US, you should say, I have 2 daughters, not 1. So I promise to care and love you rest of my life, as long as you live. And Raj, so I'm your sister now. Let the soul rest in peace. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for coming.
10 years. My first introduction to him was, I was at home on medical leave, recovering from a surgery, and Rick had just been hired by Bruce back there. And one of the instructions Bruce left with was, don't do anything unless you talk to Peter first. And Rick started calling me. He wanted me to come into work. He goes, team meeting, group meeting, come in. He actually admitted, I just wanted to meet you and find out who you were on the system. And what I really came to learn was he was really about his team. And he always referred to everybody on the group as his team. This is my team. I take responsibility for these people. And after a while, we even realized that his team and his friends were really, he was considering his family to him. And one of the ways was, at least once a quarter, if not once a month, we'd have the pizza lunch. Rick would bring in 10, 15 pizzas for everyone. We'd all sit down, conference room all jammed in, go over everything. Rather than the stodgy, typical business meetings, Rick would have the pizza lunches for everyone. Management style was, he didn't like sitting in his office. He walked around. He talked to everybody. He was a real social butterfly and stuff. He loved this interaction. What are you doing? What are you working on? What's the problem? And stuff. He wasn't big on emails, except if you put in like a late night, worked a weekend, got something done. He recognized that, and he would thank you in an email to make sure, your efforts were appreciated. We noticed this. You really helped the team out. And he was really good for that. A lot of times, particularly, we've had a long week, month, whatever, trying to get something in. Rick would end up Friday afternoon having a business morale building session at like Bertucci's, Brownstones, Cleary's, Scholars, and just invite everybody. Let's go have a beer as a team together. And again, it was about pulling everyone together, that team effort, that family effort with everybody. And a lot of people started really noticing, started pulling everyone together, and it's just a lot easier to work with and stuff. One of Rick's favorite forms of communication was his BlackBerry. So everyone, he wore out his first BlackBerry, the keypad. He would be texting. Only guy I'd ever know, he could drive with one hand and text with the other at full speed. Either hand. And stick shift. Trust me, I know, I was sitting in the passenger seat watching as he was driving, shifting, and texting. There was one time we were going to New York to go visit with a vendor. And we're down the highway, 70, 75 miles an hour. He's texting away. And he's getting really aggravated with the person at the other end of the BlackBerry. Looks over at me, he goes, grab the wheel. And I'm holding the wheel. He doesn't back off from the gas pedal at all. And he's going at it, and I just said, how about if we pull over and you do this? And he goes, we're fine. Just don't hit anything. So I started questioning his team concept at that point. So, that covers that one. Rick was also good if, even if you left the group and everyone moved on, you could always get a hold of Rick and reach out, get advice, who to talk to, what am I doing wrong here? I need help. He was always good about that and stuff, and that's something I'm really gonna miss. He and I would text a couple of times a week. As my wife Patty can tell you, sometimes during dinner, some of these text sessions would last for 30, 40 minutes at a time and stuff. I was waiting for this BlackBerry to burn out and for him to go get his third. He loved music, played piano, organ, guitar. And for those who didn't know it, he actually had a reunion with his bandmates this past summer down in Philadelphia for about 3-4 days. He went down and they had a couple of jam sessions and the whole bit. He was really looking forward to that and stuff. He was really happy. So I got to work with Rick again this past summer for about 5 months, and we would commute daily back and forth to Boston. And there were very few topics that were off limits in the car, particularly as you're sitting in traffic in 93, waiting for things to move. And one of the things that came up, Sheila, that he would say, how lucky he was to have you by his side and how much he relied on you. And you made his life so much better. I'll miss Rick. He was a really good friend and a great confidant and a manager. And right now, I will bet anything he's up there looking down at us going, what are they doing? Because right now, he's probably walking Boris and knocking back a few with his friend JB. And he will be missed.
I'm Srikant. I'm Rickoo's brother-in-law. Rajni's husband. Rickoo was a man of many, many qualities. He was smart, compassionate, outspoken, independent, but most of all, carefree. You can talk about many of these qualities, but I'd like to just focus on a couple of them and then maybe expand on it a little bit. First, the softer and caring side of Rick. We all know that he's boisterous, he laughs loud, he has fun, but there is inside that person is a soft side. First instance, we have a common relative. She's currently going through some very, very difficult time. Here's Rickoo, a man lying in his hospital bed.
A
Few days ago. In hospital bed, as Sheila said, going through some painful procedures, But what does he do? He takes the time to write a letter to her, and then picks up the phone, calls her, and then tells her, how she should be brave about herself. I thought instead of me paraphrasing what he said, I thought I would read excerpt from his email, because I think it sort of shows the side of him. Many of you may have seen in different avatars, but I thought I would read this. He says, quote unquote, "I can only imagine what you must be going through, and it pains me to no end that we are not all there to lend more support to you. However, I can tell you one thing for sure, we're fighters. Worry about your well-being and not what others may think of you. Those that matter are handful and few. No one really matters in the larger scheme of things. Above all, listen to yourself. Do what you want. Don't be pressured into doing something that you don't want to do. On that note, I'm always there for you. Just pick up the phone and call. If you want to talk anytime, anywhere, never feel you're on your own." That was written on the, 18th of February? Some 19th of February. Here's a man who's going through it. shows that his caring for other people is way ahead than himself. The second instance, I mean, this is now on the 12th of February when my wife Rajni, his sister, was visiting him. She said that she was visiting him, and it was snowing. You all know the Boston snow, right?
And he was in the hospital.
Yeah. He was in the hospital, and he sends me text saying, "Where is she?" I said, "She's driving, stuck in the traffic in Boston." She says, "If Raj calls, tell her she should consider heading straight home. It looks bad out there, and I'll just grab something to eat and sleep." This concern for her was typical, in spite of the fact that she was bringing him what he savored the most: good food. Even at his most suffering time, he was thinking about the pain and difficulties of others. That sort of stands out to me as one of the rare qualities of an individual. Rickoo enjoyed good company, good parties, good jokes. I'm sure that many of you have received his jokes, and occasional heated debates. Peter said a few things there. But when you got into the topics of food, he was an awesome cook. Music, he was very versatile, and with his voice and many, many instruments. Sports, he was an expert, just like all us Bostonians are. And world politics, he was still forming his opinions. And when these topics came up, his eyes would light up, his drinks flowed a little faster, his voice got louder, and his laughter would be booming. I'll miss him dearly. I will miss the unending successive text messages, especially when I'm taking my afternoon nap. I used to get that all the time. I would miss the invitation to his house, especially when Rajni was traveling, to enjoy the delicious masala dosa and sambar made by Sheila. She was lying when she said she doesn't know how to cook. Those are the best masala dosas I've eaten.
You still get it.
That was.
You still get it.
I heard you. The parties at his house, I will miss that. When invariably, at the end of the party, he would get in front of his keyboard, or he would take his guitar, and we would go on belting multilingual songs. Sometimes, I think it was his strategy to tell everybody to leave, because he would use my voice to sing. People did not want to hear that. Receiving jokes from him often, and most importantly, links to YouTube videos of the old Indian songs we used to sing. His booming laughter whenever we shared jokes, even though the quality of our jokes was much to be said about. The evening calls at 5, and Rajni said that. He would leave work and he would say, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm home." He goes, "Well, I have a 7 p.m. curfew. I have to go home." And "Can I come and have a drink?" I said, "Sure, come on over." At 7:15, he would send a note saying, "I'm discussing some business with Rickoo." I wouldn't be able to make it until 7:45. And then he would look for, what can I take for her? What can I take for her? So I can go on about the things that I miss. Anyway, what's the use of that? I'd like to conclude my speech with a paragraph from an Indian scripture. It says, "For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He is not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain." That comes from Bhagavad Gita. Rickoo, I know that you're now resting in peace and enjoying a good scotch, no matter where you are. Perhaps you're ordering at this instant, and this I paraphrase him in Tamil, "Dai, for scotch kodra." In English it means, "Yo, give me a scotch." May your soul help many people in your new avatar. We'll miss you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Shibi Anthony, and I'm Rick's brother-in-law and Sheila's brother. Rick was a wonderful person who'd always mix around with anybody. He was more of a brother than a brother-in-law. He used to always guide me whenever I was in need, and whenever I was in need of guidance. Even though he was in a lot of pain, he never showed it out and used to make the rest of the world laugh. It's hard to believe that he's no more with us, but I'm trying to frame up my mind to believe that he's gone for a long journey and he will come back one day. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming here today to say goodbye to our beloved Rick. Thank you.
Nathan and I were just saying this morning when we were thinking about what to talk about, that we can't even remember a period in our lives where we don't have memories with Rickoo. He was a constant presence in our lives from the time that we can remember. And he was a regular babysitter for us, and he liked to tell us about all the crazy things we used to do when he would babysit for us as kids. And there's a particular story that he used to like to share with us that we thought we would share with you. There was a time when Nathan and I were being exceptionally badly behaved one day. Nothing he could do would control us. We were just crazy that evening. And for the first time ever, he raised his voice and he yelled at us. And then, as he likes to say, he says, "I took one look at your faces and I swore that I would never yell at you two again." And he was right. He never raised his voice with either of us again after that.
Yeah, I think everyone has got one of those really cool relatives, those cool uncles or aunts who is more like a friend than an uncle or aunt. Well, of course, still being kind of responsible. And Rickoo was definitely one of those for us. He didn't even want us to call him uncle. We always called him Rickoo from the time that we were little. And I sort of always remember him laughing and joking with us. And you know, he had us as his nieces, and he always made the effort to stay in touch with us. I think relationships were so important to him, and people were the most important thing for him. Even wherever in the world we were, he always stayed in touch. He always made the effort to be there for us for all of the special moments in our lives. And you know, even though Vanita and I are not so great at keeping in touch, we always appreciated that he made the effort. And I know for my mom, I don't know where she is, but there she is. You always know, Mama, when siblings are really close to each other, that they fight like cats and dogs. And we always knew how close you were to Rickoo because of the way that you guys would argue, and the way that he would give you a tough time and you would give him a tough time back. And one thing that we can promise to do is to continue giving you a tough time in his place, on his behalf. Sheila Auntie, Vanita and I were so excited when we heard that Rickoo was going to get married, because he was always that, you know, bachelor uncle, and we would go visit him, and we were so happy when you came into his life. And I think you made him even more multifaceted and more complex, and you brought out such amazing things in him. And so, you know, you're always our aunt, and you know, we'll continue to come and demand food from you.
Sure.
Even though you might not be able to make that egg burji that I ate so much of last time I came to your house, but you can make something, and we would love that.
Yeah.
And actually, we both are moms, and we know how difficult it is to lose a child, or we cannot even imagine how difficult it must be. But I think, you know, one thing that I know probably it's not something that's even on your mind right now, but just to look around and see how many people appreciated him and loved him, and what a wonderful life he had, and what a wonderful wife he had. And, you know, he had everything that he could have ever wanted. And I think, at least as a mother, to be able to see that, however difficult everything else may be, that's such a blessing. And, you know, we both wanted to just leave with one short story each. Recently, my 6-year-old son, got very interested in the guitar, and very interested in, you know, Paul Simon and the Beatles, and other musicians from, you know, way back in Rickoo's time that he knew a lot about. And he was very, very sweet, and he came over and he brought Rudra a guitar last time we were in Lexington. And Rudra took that guitar home, and he's taking guitar lessons, and he loves it. So that music that we always remember in Rickoo, I hope will live on in our family.
And Rickoo and I bonded over two things, you know, in particular, our love of chicken of any kind, and our love of the Patriots. Growing up from a young age, you know, I watched football with my dad, and it was always fun to talk to Rickoo about that. When I would see him, we'd always chat about what chicken dish we ate recently, or what chicken dish we tried to make recently, and Rickoo would always start telling me, okay, here's the recipe for the one that I made, and he'd just say it off the top of his head, and I'd just look at him and say, why don't I come to your house and you can make it for me? Which he did. And then Sundays, I got so accustomed to every Sunday on game day getting this slew of text messages from him during the game, whether the Patriots were losing, and then it would be these frustrated string of messages until they started doing better again. Or if they won, you know, the celebratory messages. And Varun, I always think of you because Varun is a Buffalo fan, and Rickoo would always send these gloating messages to him when the Patriots won. And I don't know if Varun ever knows this, but Rickoo would check the text with me before he sent them to you. He would send them to me and say, does this sound boastful enough? Do you think Varun will appreciate it? And I would always say, yes, go right ahead.
And I think to leave you guys with a few words, we were talking today, in fact, while we were sitting back there, and we were saying that, you know, we could just imagine if Rickoo was here with us right now, he would be sitting in the back with us, sort of making jokes and making us laugh through the whole thing. And so we wanted to bring that lighthearted spirit, and, you know, just remember him as someone who was always there to make other people laugh and make other people smile. So, yeah. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for coming.
Good friend of Rickoo. Rickoo, I've known him for about 25 years now, and amongst all of us friends, I'm the oldest, so I'm supposed to be the old fart. I'm supposed to be the guru. And Rickoo was the youngest of our group, and he was supposed to be the chela. In India, you have a guru and a chela, so I was the older man, so I was the guru, and he was the chela. But over the period of time, I think the roles reversed, and actually Rickoo really became the guru, and I became his chela. And I look back and I say, yeah, really, if I could live a life the way Rickoo lived, it'd be a perfect life. He was one of the most caring people, and I remember that I was working in 1997 for Equinox, and I used to travel a lot to India, and Rekha was here all by herself. And Rickoo and Sheila were the two people who would go and visit Rekha on a regular basis. And ever since then, Rekha says, Ramesh, if you go to India, I don't have a problem. I can call Rickoo and he'll be there in a minute. I'm gonna miss that. As you all know, Rickoo is one of those guys who's always the life of the party, always likes to have fun. And that's again something that I've learned from him. Whatever you're doing, live the right life, enjoy it. And as everybody has been saying here, Rickoo was the greatest person in terms of supporting BlackBerry. He would text day, night, in, out. And as we all know, I think he had a timetable. Around 5 o'clock, as Shiri was saying, the messages will start floating around. Hey, where are you guys? What are you doing? When are we getting together for a drink? And then he'll say, but I have to go home. So he always was worried about being home for your. I know, you must be one tough lady, but you love her. Rickoo, I think, had some sort of inkling, I think, that something was going to happen to him. And about 3 months back, he came to my house and we're chatting. He says, Ramesh, I'm doing some consulting work, but I want to start a company. And I really want to put together a real business. So 3 months back, he started a company called Agile Technology Services. I said, Rickoo, you are already busy, you're doing all this stuff. Why do you want to start something? Take it from me. Starting a company is not easy, it's not fun, it's a lot of pain. Why do you want to do it? He said, Ramesh, I want to do it for Sheila. And at that time, I didn't understand. He said, if something happens to me, I think this company will be something that Sheila can run. He was thinking about you way back, preparing for it. And I think I'm going to miss him for that. I think I really enjoyed a lot of things with him. He used to play, whenever we had Diwali, we would play poker, India poker up there. And he was one tough guy to really read. He would bluff the hell out of you, and he would not care. He would have nothing in his hand, but he will put money after dollar, and a person like me, I would say, okay, I am just folding. And then he'd laugh at me after that. But he was a good poker player. Drinks, as we all said, he enjoyed it, whether it be scotch, be it wine, but he was cutting down quite a bit. Over the last, I think, year, he cut down his drinking quite a bit. One thing that I think I have never really was able to do and enjoy with him is he really loved his sushi. And sushi is something I've never had it, never liked it, but tomorrow I think I'm going to go and have some sushi and I'm going to remember him.
We're going to hear a lot of common things today. But for me, music, laughter, Sardarji jokes, a love for good food, a love for dogs like none other, and living each day to its fullest. That's how I remember Rickoo best. In fact, that is the common thread woven today through in everyone's memory of him. His love for music was contagious for anyone that has listened to him. A very talented guitarist and pianist. We had had many, many sing-alongs with his melodious strumming and playing. His laughter, or I should say his guffaw, was infectious. He loved to laugh. And anyone who's had any, if you've been texting with Rickoo, you've heard this again, you've had any recent communication with him via text, email, WhatsApp, that was his newest addition, I'm sure you're bound to find a joke there in the conversation thread. He loved sending jokes, he loved receiving jokes. When I sent him a joke, I could picture his body shaking with laughter. Every one of us in our circle of friends has at least 1 or 2 items of food, so there we go, it's about food again, that Rickoo loved, and he would always request that we make that for the get-together. And he always made sure there was a doggy bag for him to take home, or for Sheila if she didn't come. Watching Rickoo with his dogs, Boris and now Boomer, was always a treat. He loved them to pieces, and they loved him even more. Finally, he loved living each day to the fullest, no matter what, and never wanted to be fussed over his health problems. And that was his most admirable quality, and one that will continue to be an inspiration for all of us. Rickoo and I bonded in many ways, but the one bond that I carry close to my heart is our love and rendition of Hotel California by the Eagles. At every party that involved Rickoo strumming on his guitar or playing his piano, at some point during the music session, he would start the chords of Hotel California and shout out, "Hey, Ranjani!" That was my cue to sing along. Of course, I did get chided for not keeping the beat. My dear friend Rickoo, it will not be the same without you. You will be missed terribly, but I will continue to sing this song and forever dedicate it to you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Chiwala Noli. I'm a friend and colleague of Rick. It's with a deep and mixed emotion that I remember Rick. I had a wonderful opportunity to get to know him in both professional and personal levels. As you know,
Rick was a hands-on technology leader. He provided great leadership with a cheerful and optimistic attitude to build teams, motivate, and challenge them to achieve and excel in everyone's full potential. I had the great privilege to consider him as my mentor and advisor. On a personal level, he was a great family friend. He valued and shared his personal relationships with a wide network of friends. Rick conquered them using his amazing weapon and constant companion, as many of you mentioned, his BlackBerry, which Sheila qualified as his first wife. It won't be an exaggeration if I say that Rick came to our life some 9 years ago as an angel and touched the hearts of everyone in our family. And I am sure this has happened to many amongst us who are here. It is true that we live further out. Most complain it is a little bit too far, but Rick and Sheila are the only persons who enjoy coming to our garden and join us for many delicious dinners at any weather, and it was a pleasure to have them at our place. On Sheila's 50th birthday, we had the honor to host the event at our house, which gave us the opportunity to meet many of Rick's good friends and family who are also gathered here. It was a wonderful and a memorable evening. He lived as a complete person in a very challenging health condition. At the end, he was consumed by a sudden and unimaginable twist of nature, which brought us all here. His spirit is going to live in our hearts forever. Thank you.
Rikan's brother's daughter. I have many fond memories of Rickoo. When I was in college, actually, Rickoo was doing some work down in DC at the International Monetary Fund. So we would meet often either for lunch at his favorite Thai restaurant or Pakistani restaurant, or just after my classes for a drink at the pub. And so I always have fond memories of Rickoo from then. And also, you know, I have all the memories of Rickoo coming to our house and singing with Srikant and all of the friends gathered here. And I think we probably lost the best musician amongst the group, so I think going forward our parties will be slightly more off-key. So yeah, so we'll all definitely miss Rickoo a lot.
When I first moved to Lexington after school in Illinois, and I have fond memories of Rick and sushi. Ramesh is the one that reminded me of this. For a while he worked down at Rounder Records, and I would meet him down there after work, and we'd go to Hana Sushi, which was nearby, kind of across the street, and we'd order enough sushi to cover the whole table. And then we'd have competition who could put the most wasabi in their soy sauce and still eat it without having the steam come out of your ears. But no, I'll really miss Rick. It's a sad day. Thank you.
He was not married at that time, and he would come to our house in Waltham, and the same thing, the same theme. What are you guys doing? Not having a party. Let's open a bottle of scotch, or let's play a game of bluff. And that was his way of coming into our life. And I have a poem that I want to read. And you all know which side it's going to fall. Remember Me poem by David Harkins. You can shed tears that he is gone, or you can smile because he lived. You can close your eyes and pray that he will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that he has left. Your heart can be empty because you cannot see him, or you can be full of love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow because of yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember him and only that he is gone, or you can cherish his memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what he would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. I think that's what he would want all of us to do. Thank you.
One of my memories of Rickoo is always, along with my uncle Srikant, I feel like he initiated me from a boy into the man's group with our family get-togethers. When I was young, I remember hearing about these legendary poker games or seeing all the empty whiskey bottles and wine bottles on the counter, and soon, because of Rickoo, I was contributing to the poker game, losing my money or contributing to the empty bottles. But like Vanita mentioned, one of the biggest traditions that's probably been going on for about close to 10 years now is every Sunday, invariably after yet another Buffalo Bills loss, I would get a voicemail from Rickoo, or a phone call from Rickoo. And in my early naive years, I would pick up the phone every time, and it would start the same way, just his loud cackle in the background. As I became more of a sore loser and smartened up a little bit, I stopped answering those phone calls. And invariably, Rickoo would leave a loud cackle in the background on my voicemail, and I would always, to feel the true pain of the loss, listen to it 3 or 4 hours later. Just as recently as 2 weeks ago, after Rickoo won, the Patriots, won the Super Bowl, Rickoo texted me a few days later and said, all 19 Patriots games are on the NFL Network today. I replied to him, sounds like heaven. It's undoubtedly where Rickoo is right now, and I know he's kicking back and watching all 19 of those games, and truly, I know he was really excited they won the Super Bowl this year. What's nice on having technology now is I still have a lot of those voicemails from Rickoo saved on my phone, and I know there'll be many more Bills losses, and I definitely promised myself after each and every one I'm going to listen to one of those old voicemails just to remember, not my uncle, but my good friend Rickoo. He's really a good friend, and it's unbelievable that he's gone, but we definitely remember him today, and he was a fantastic guy.
I'm related to Rickoo by marrying Vanita, who's his niece. But more than that, Rickoo was a very good friend of mine. He was on par with my age. He knew exactly what. There was no generation gap between us. Any parties, all the laughters, all bottle of scotch or poker games, we did lose, and I lost a lot to him. He was not just my friend, he was also a friend for my family when my parents visited here for my wedding or whenever they came to see us. He used to take them under his wing and entertain them, and he was also their friend. So more than he being a relative or an uncle, he was a friend, and I really miss his presence, and thank you.
We grew up together, very close. Rakesh was texting me in the hospital when I was there, well, WhatsApping with me actually, and I think he was really distraught as Rickoo got sicker and sicker. So he sent something, and I'm going to read this to you, and then we'll just read some of the others that come in. So this is from Rakesh, Rickoo's and my cousin. Thanks for introducing me to cigarettes. Together we've been through a lot, some of which I remember and some of which have faded out of my memories. Thanks for exchanging my toys for kites. That was a brilliant deal. I'm sorry we came to blows, but I guess after that one incident, we both realized how stupid we'd become. From that day onwards, we had a great relationship based on respect and love. I dreamt about my mom last night after something like 20 years. Rakesh lost his mother, that is our aunt, in 1979. So he dreamt about his mother last night after 20 years. And he asks Rickoo, what were you trying to tell me? The past couple of days have not been too good. I'm still coming to terms about your leaving us. I salute you for living life to the maximum. I salute you for the strength you showed ever since your kidneys went on extended leave. I will always remember the inane stuff we both giggled about when we were young, and right up to the last few days, and right up to the last few WhatsApp messages we exchanged. We sure saw humor where others saw nothing. I will be drinking to you this Saturday, Rickoo, and promise to keep the memories that haven't faded intact until I join you. I miss you, and I love you, your brother.
Friend, Rahul Sinha. He says, I knew Rickoo from the day I entered Bishop Cotton Boys School in Bangalore, sometime in June of 1973, in Standard 7, Section C. Since then, our lives have intertwined many times, often seeming as if we'd never meet again, only to surprisingly collide in a new place. In Cotton's, he was called Jumbo, both for his friendly girth and his outside personality. As a scared and shy newcomer, I used to watch in awe as Jumbo casually breezed in and out of all kinds of social situations, talking to just about everyone, classmates, teachers, scary seniors, with ease and confidence. He was equally friendly to everyone. He never looked down at anyone, no matter their age or interests. Jumbo certainly had his share of mischief in Cotton's, but his was a humorous, well-intentioned kind, unlike some of the nasty brats and bullies. Teachers would knowingly say with a half smile, "Ah, Jumbo, you've got to keep it down," or "Jumbo, why don't you let someone else talk?" I remember Mrs. Sebastian in our English class. She was a nice lady, but by golly, it was one of the most boring classes on earth because she would just make us read out of the textbook almost the entire class. Her favorite reader was Jumbo. I can vividly recall the image, she looking over the rim of her spectacles, searching for someone to pick on. We would all look down, avoiding her gaze. But Jumbo would look around with her, almost challenging the class, before finally she'd say, "Okay, Jumbo, you read." And with his loud and clear voice, it was probably just as well that he read out for us. When I left Cotton's for Bombay, I wasn't sure if I'd see many other Cottonians again, but lo and behold, I ran into a common acquaintance, a Parsi fellow whose name I can't remember, who knew Jumbo through some connection at the Scottish orphanage school. 2 years later, I was a freshman in BITS Pilani. Freshers arrived a month before the official semester for remedial classes. On the second day, I was in Connaught, the modest shopping area, getting odds and ends when I ran into a familiar face. It was Jumbo. We had grown past our Cottonian days and looked a bit older and were deliberately unwiser, but we hit it off right away. We were both fish out of water in a sea of earnest, hard-working freshmen because we had other ideas. There was a non-academic world to explore, beginning with the god-awfully foul country liquor called Dura. Those 3 years in BITS flew by. We both got interested in music. I got to see what raw talent meant. In his typical attitude towards any endeavor, he would practice not at all, but just play off the cuff and by ear, and it would sound good. Whatever he did, he managed to make it sound authentic and musical. He also had an encyclopedic knowledge of song chords, so if we sat all night at a campfire, he could play through the entire night, happiest when accompanying singers. There was one guitar in particular that I remember. It was one of those old, clunky, Indian-made electric guitars with strings so far off the fretboard you need superhuman strength to get a decent sound out of it. He had such firm, strong hands, he could play that guitar all through a music club evening. Then one day, he got his green card and he was off to America. We were all in awe, and once again, I thought I'd never see him again. Years later, I became a grad student at UMass Amherst. Typical in many ways, a bunch of Indian students living in a shared apartment, grinding along the PhD path with a modest stipend. Then one day, one of the other students asked me, "Hey, did I know a Srinivasan?" I don't now remember who it was or how the connection came up. But as soon as I got a contact number, I sneaked up to Boston and we met up, after no contact these many years, and promptly relived some of our best days and happy escapades from BITS. One of those evenings, after staggering back from downtown Lexington past midnight, we watched reruns of Hogan's Heroes until dawn. I never laughed so much. Being with him was just a blast. At that time, I had a car with a broken heater, and so in the middle of winter, I had to stop at every McDonald's on the way to Amherst just to thaw out. It became a long-running joke between us. When I got my first job in Williamsburg, he asked if I'd finally fixed the heater. I hadn't. The years went by. We lost touch for a while. When I moved back up to Northern Virginia, we were once again in touch through MassP. We would meet on and off. One time, 4 of us, 2 Bitsians plus spouses, drove to Maine where I had an assignment and stopped by in Boston to spend a night with Rickoo and Sheila. It was great to catch up. Sheila made one of our favorite Pilani Daba foods that day, egg parathas. And after some lubrication, we ended up revisiting a favorite pastime, imitating the teachers we knew in Cotton's. "Tu man follow," one would shout while swiping at us with a 3-foot wooden ruler. "You give me headache, Isaiah," was the common refrain from agitated math teacher. What a swell evening it was. Another visit to the Boston area after that, early 2000s perhaps, for a conference, and I stopped by once more. But this time I knew of his strange kidney collapse and the risks involved. I was just amazed at how casually he took it. Self-pity was just not in his vocabulary. Rickoo stands unique in the group of friends I know. There's been nobody with such an irrepressible cheerfulness, an outright refusal to let anything get him down, and an energetic willingness to share what he had to make you comfortable and have a plain old good time. Wherever you are now, Rickoo, I know you are having a good time and making those around you happy. We will miss you. May we have the strength and will to keep your tradition of cheerful optimism. Rahul Simha.
But I see I knew you not at all. You burst into my life in 1980 in Pilani, so full of life, always jolly, always quipping. You were a good time friend, I thought, there for when I needed a laugh. But then you surprised me with your depth when I needed buoying up after a tragic event on campus. You were the only one whose insight and words of wisdom were able to heal. And again in Bangalore when I was first getting to know Rajiv's family and was somewhat overwhelmed by it all. I'm sorry I lost touch with you over the years. Life has an inconvenient way of intervening in what matters most. When we reconnected a few years ago, all the years just fell away and you picked right up where you left off, once again pulling my leg mercilessly. I'm so sorry we were never able to actually meet up, despite your many efforts. We came so close in New York, Boston, and Philly. But I once again hid behind life, certain that we had many more years ahead of us and many more opportunities to connect. I recently went back to our Facebook conversations to find your last message to me some months ago. Good morning, sunshine. I had clearly missed it somewhere along the way and never responded. There was always going to be another time, I thought. How did I not know your private trials and tribulations over the last several years? How did I not know that even as you were posting on Facebook the sweetest harmony of George Harrison and Bob Dylan singing If Not For You, that you were actually fighting for your life? I saw you and Maskey as old friends, sharing a park bench quietly, even when we were all 70 and more. Go quiet into the night, dear friend. We will keep the beacon of your warmth and laughter alive, even though you are no longer by our sides. How can we not?
This is from Rickoo's uncle, Mr. Sheshadri, who Rickoo considered as his father. So it's a short note, but I think it means a lot for me to read it here, and I'm sure Rickoo will be listening somewhere. It says, "It is emotionally difficult for me to accept that Rickoo is not going to be there. Although memories of the past decades keep flashing in my mind, memories laced with banter, laughter, and fun, good things have abruptly come to an end. Rickoo was gutsy, full of spirit, had a great heart, and was always willing to help. He lived with a health problem, but never allowed that to reduce his gusto and positive attitude. There was a couple of decades of gap in our biological age, but the gap was zilch, nothing, when it came to discussions on cricket and Indian politics. He will always remain in my memory. All the strength to his good partner and friend Sheila, his mother Hema, and Rajni." I've got one other small one from his cousin, Aparna Sheshadri, which is Mr. Sheshadri's daughter, Rickoo's cousin. It says, "Dearest Rickoo, you were generous, warm-hearted, caring, and giving. I still vividly remember the concern in your words about my own illness and your beautiful, encouraging mail. All this when you were unwell yourself and in the hospital. I'll greatly miss you. With love and best wishes, Absi." And last, another small one from another Aparna, who is Rakesh's wife. "It takes courage to just yourself and live your life regardless of the world. And you did just that. Thanks for all the laughs and for all the love you gave to Boris and Boomer."
Called Maskey. Everybody said Maskey. Maskey was a friend of Rickoo. He lives in DC. He works for the World Bank. He's currently traveling in India. And Maskey and Rickoo were, I guess Maskey was the brother Rickoo always wanted, wished he could have had, and Rickoo was the brother Maskey always wanted to have. They went to college together in Pilani. Pilani, you've heard this again. There's a college there called the Birla Institute of Technology and Science, BITS. Maskey and Rickoo were incredibly close. They cooked together, they played music together, they were in this band together in BITS, and then they jammed together later. Maskey told Sheila that even had he been in the country, he's not sure he could have been here because it would have been too painful for him to be here. But Maskey sent me a eulogy this morning, and he wanted me to read it. And I just feel like it's right we should end with Maskey's words, because Maskey was just so close to Rickoo. Maskey's name, by the way, it's Giovanni Mascarenhas, in case you're wondering. I never expected to write your eulogy. I always regarded you as the younger brother that I never had, and imagined that we would gracefully age together, preserving a friendship that knew no bounds of love and laughter. We first met in 1980 at BITS. Your appearance as a sloppy, disheveled, half-starved student automatically earned you the name Slob. Very quickly, any mention of the word Slob related to friendship, fun, excitement, and loyalty. We bonded instantly. I should have charged you rent for spending so many nights in my room on the floor when you had your own room. When I was tired, you kept talking me to sleep while I pretended to listen. We challenged each other on Beatles trivia, tried to sing in harmony, and were convinced about our destiny to meet in the US later in life. I am in denial. You have been a big part of my life. I feel the void already. You were not supposed to leave me. It was not in the script that we planned over so many decades. I'm still going to have virtual conversations with you, and will still ask myself, what would Slob think about this? Whenever I come across a new recipe, joke, political fiasco, or sports scandal. I feel anger. You have suffered for years without complaint. Nobody would have had the courage and persistence to push forward with such resilience and positive thinking. Why were you chosen to succumb so early? The level of sadness among everyone you touched in your life is striking. I arrived in Bangalore airport a couple of hours ago and felt that something was different and lacking. The last time I landed here in October, you met me at the airport, and we had a great weekend together, reminiscing and visiting our old haunts. I recall that you also picked me up from the Bangalore airport on December 31st, 1981, and we brought in the new year together. I feel relief. You've quietly suffered long enough. I feel sad that your physical organs were not so strong as your emotions and intellect. Perhaps the Almighty was compassionate by bringing it all to an end quickly. I'm not physically present at your funeral, and I know you would understand my mixed feelings about this. Being there in person would demonstrate the immense grief and agony that I feel. But I don't want to see you lying still in a coffin. That's not the last picture of my dear Slob that I want indelibly written in my memories. I want to carry forward your ringing sounds of laughter, peculiar mannerisms, and lively conversations. We experienced a lot together. We had good days and wonderful days. There were mistakes made and corrective paths taken. We supported each other and knew that we could always count on each other regardless of the circumstances. I feel empty. We planned our bucket list together. We were supposed to go to Liverpool on a Beatles tour and stroll barefoot across Abbey Road. And then we planned to cruise to the Antarctica and stand among the penguins. Now what? I will feel strong. There are tears flowing across the globe. with expressions of shock and sadness, denial, confusion, and despair. I know that you would want those of us who you have left behind to move forward with our lives. Your hundreds of friends and admirers joined this morning alongside Sheila, Rajni, and your mom. Our state of shock will gradually turn to acceptance. We offer all our love and support to Sheila and will further your legacy of positive thinking, unparalleled sense of humor, loyalty, friendship, and love. A great man has left us, and may your soul rest in